everybody. My name is Nyemade Boiwu, and I am the Chief Content Officer with AllGo. I'm so excited to bring you another love story today as part of our Love Handles All series, where we're just sharing love stories from people in all bodies to let everybody know that everyone deserves love, that everyone can find love out there. So I'm so excited today. I have Andrew and Jamie with me. How are you both doing today?
Doing good.
Really well, thank you.
Awesome. So let's just kick it off from the beginning. How did you two meet?
Ooh, I'll take this one. It really happened by chance, kind of one of those same place, right time, right people sort of thing. So I was reading a book that they really loved and struck up a conversation with me. And when we first started talking, it really wasn't the end goal to start dating. It was just we had a lot in common. I'm a photographer. Andrew is a musician and a writer and a painter. So we bonded over our love for creativity. And I believe the phrase was, since we were both two employed artists, that it was like finding unicorns in the forest and we needed to keep tabs on each other. So we exchanged contact information, and that was pretty much as far as I thought things were going to go initially. But as we started talking, we realized we had more and more and more in common. And I don't think it took very long before we realized that, like, hey, we kind of like each other. From my angle, how I told friends was one day Andrew and I were just talking over Skype, and let you know how long ago it's been. And they were saying that they were updating their dating profile. And I said to myself, like, I need to step up my game here. And I thought to myself, what's the worst that could happen? If they say no, it's not like I've not been rejected before.
Right.
So I think I actually used the phrase, I need to step up my game. And they were like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, if you put that out there, I may have to step up my game. And they were like, no, you don't. So it was kind of one of those, like, I think you're pretty cool. You think I'm pretty cool. Let's give this a shot. So we've been together for 11 years.
Nice. Andrew, did you have any idea, like when you said that, were you trying to bait her into saying that she had feelings for you, or are you really ready to put your dating profile out there?
Oh, no, I was absolutely trying to get her to say she had feelings.
And it worked. I love that.
Turd.
I am a very poor liar and I have very little interest in putting up a false front. So no, I didn't want there to be this like lingering thing over everything. It's like, no, put it out there.
Oh, I love that. And you said you guys have been together 11 years now. That's awesome.
It'll be 12 in September.
12 in September, yeah. And we've been distanced the entire time.
You have. So where do you live?
I'm in Richmond, Virginia. Andrew is in Toronto, Ontario.
And you've been that way for the past 12 years?
Yeah.
When we first met, I was even worse because I was in Edmonton, Alberta, which is on the other side of the country and 2 hours behind.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I feel like the time difference would be hard. I have to admit, I love a good long distance relationship. Like I'm so like independently like loving my own space.
Right.
Yeah, I love a good long distance, because then when you get together, it's like you're very focused on each other. And then when you're not, I don't know, how has it been going for you two? How have you been finding? I mean, not that bad if it's been 12 years, right?
Yeah, like it's got its frustrations, and I think we'd both like to be in each other's faces a lot more. But yeah, we're both fairly independent. We have full lives, and our lives intersect fully. Like each of our friend groups really loves the other person, and all that. But yeah, even when we're in the same space, we both are pretty good at claiming our own space if we need it. If I need to duck into a different room and do some writing, or just if she wants to watch something that I don't, I'll just sit there and read instead. Like we operate in our own space, whether we're in the same space or not, which is pretty great.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think from the beginning, our thought process was when we were together, we would do life together. So Andrew has a job where they're able to stay a little longer than I can. I do have a job where I'm tethered to my desk a little bit. And so when they're here, we're both working around the same time. We go to the gym together, that sort of thing. So it just has become kind of routine, and over the years, I think one of the things that we try to do is we try to talk to each other, every day, sometimes multiple times a day. Our Facebook chat is probably hundreds of thousands of messages back and forth with one another.
Yes.
So we definitely try to keep in contact with each other, and we try to FaceTime, every night. If one of us has something that we have to do or what have you, sometimes that doesn't happen, but for the most part, that kind of helps to feel like the other person is in the room. And we do other things. In the before times, we did what we would call like long distance movie dates. We'd pick a movie that we both wanted to see, and we'd see it on the same day. Sometimes I would see it before they did, just depending on workload. And that way we can talk about it. We have in the past, actually, during the height of the pandemic, there have been a couple of times where we've both started a movie at the exact same time and had the other person on FaceTime and just sort of talked like that. So we really, I think, the things that we share in kind, we try to do together as much as possible. So that does help.
You
Yeah.
said depending on workload. Let's be realistic. It's depending on sleep schedules, because when we're apart, my sleep schedule is that of the living dead, where I am, awake till 4 or 6 in the morning, and she is an early riser. So I'll wake up and she'll have already been to the movies and come back and relax for a couple of hours, and I'll just be greeting the world.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I'm sure that is something to get adjusted to, especially because you're not together enough to really switch it, right? Like there's no real point to switch it if you're only together for short periods of time. So I'm sure those periods of times, it's something to navigate.
Yeah, I would say the most navigation we probably have to do is actually when I'm visiting family, because my family lives out in White Rock, British Columbia, which is 3 hours to the west. And so we've got a time difference, and we've got me in the house with 3 other adults and 2 dogs, and don't have time to always hop on FaceTime. We don't always intersect that way. Those are probably the only actual gaps where we go maybe more than a day without seeing each other.
Mm. And so what was dating like for both of you before you found each other? What was your dating history like?
Tumbleweeds. I can say pretty succinctly that I kind of lived a different life before Andrew. It sounds weird, but basically what I mean is that I was doing a lot of youth ministry and things like that. So I was very focused on that. I worked with bands and so on and so forth. So a lot of the time I was spending traveling, hanging out with people, that sort of thing. And the few crushes that I did have on friends of mine were unrequited, like big time. So it really wasn't until that year or the first few months of 2011 when we got together that I actually really gave dating a shot. And I think I went out on 2 dates and talked to a couple of different people, and none of it ever really panned out to anything. Very nice individuals, but just definitely not for me. So
Yes.
I was new to the game, but also, like you said before, having that independence, I had been pretty fulfilled and single for the most part. The last serious relationship that I had was when I was in university, and that was another long distance thing. Maybe that's just my thing, I don't know. But this was, I'm gonna maybe age myself here. This was during message boards and things like that. So we had the advent of computers, but it was really not as easy as it has been now. So we dated for about a year, and it just sort of fizzled out. But after that, I think from 18 to 19, so from 19 until 34, 35-ish, just single, living my life.
I love that. Love that. What about you, Andrew?
Mine was a little bit different. I didn't date very much. I think the first date I went on, I was in my early 20s. Well, I went on literally one date in high school where we saw the movie Birdcage and didn't even so much as hold hands ever. That was my dating experience. Prior to university, I had an on again, off again girlfriend. It was one of those things where we were just better friends, and it just kind of never clicked. And then I actually, before meeting Jamie, I was involved in another long distance relationship. with a lovely person who we're friends. There was a fairly lengthy gap, but we're friends now. But it was just we didn't fit. We tried to make it work. She was in LA, I was in BC. And yeah, it was just, we made it work for 5 years, and yeah, it just didn't. And then there was only actually about 6 months before I met Jamie. I wasn't actually thinking of dating. I was thinking, I'm going to be single for a bit. I'm going to figure it out. I was,
Yeah.
I was in Edmonton. I'm there for a job. I didn't feel at home there for a number of reasons. And I was just trying to figure my stuff out. And then this person waltzed into my life, and suddenly things clicked very, very quickly.
Mm.
It was within what, like a week, 2 weeks, that we started to figure out, like, no, this works.
Not even, honey. It
No.
wasn't even, I think it
Yeah.
was like a day.
Yeah, it was like 2 or 3
It was
days.
like a day or
Like,
two. Yeah.
yeah,
They say that happens though, that like when you meet that person, you just like it just sort of falls in place.
that's kind of what happened. I wasn't looking for it, and that's when it happened. And yeah, it wouldn't change anything.
Yeah, it was, because when people ask me, especially because I had such a foundation with friends and so on and so forth, when Andrew came on the scene, there were a ton of questions, right? And some threats lobbied Andrew's way, but lovingly, of course.
Oh yeah, I had my life threatened by at least 1 or 2 friends of hers. Just,
Yeah.
don't hurt this person or we'll find you.
But they asked me, what was it? And I said, what we did, I don't know if I would necessarily suggest for everybody, but I feel like one of our first conversations was one very in-depth conversation. I think we talked for like 8 hours the first time we actually talked on Skype. And it was a lot of laying ourselves bare. Like, we were honest from the jump. And I think that's kind of what helped. And that is what was the difference. But I don't know if that works for everybody else, to like, here's my baggage, boom, here's my baggage, boom.
Yeah. And in my case, in the last relationship, there were a lot of things that I didn't say. There was things that I could have said that would have made healing between us a lot easier. I hid a lot because I wasn't ready. And when I met Jamie, even though only 6 months had passed, I'd been through enough sort of my own work where I realized I didn't want to ever do that again. So I put my mistakes and my past and whatever trauma I had, like, pretty much out there right away, because as Jamie sort of alluded to, like, if you hold on to this and it comes out later and it kills things, like, better to find out now.
Yeah. No, and
Stuck around.
yeah, and I think that happens a lot of times for people where the trauma, for lack of a better word, from previous relationships helps to prepare them, if they took the time to learn to be the better versions of themselves for the next relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel, because this is for AllGo, it's our app that's designed to help people sort of find where they fit in and find resources that they need to help them. So we're very big about being size inclusive. Do you find, or do you feel that your weight ever played a role in how you felt about dating?
For me, yes. I carry a couple of different intersectionalities. I'm Black and fat. And so those two things kind of put you in two different categories for some people. And when I was younger, I looked a little different than I do now. And so when I was on those internet streets talking to people, I either had people who fetishized me, or I was immediately put into the friend, big sister category. And in the circles that I hung out in, especially during college and high school, I was usually the only one, the only fat girl, the only Black girl in my socialization groups or whatnot. And there were times where I literally had guys who would tap me on the shoulder to talk to my hot friend, that sort of thing. So there was a lot in my mind, especially in my 20s, where it was like, is this really going to happen for me? And am I comfortable with the fact that it may not? And it's just because of aesthetically how I look. And for some of the folks that I had crushes with, I was good enough to hang out with and good enough to get very, very close with, but was not the person that they wanted to date. Which their loss.
Their loss, absolutely.
I came out, on the other side even better. But yeah, there was that little bit. And even when we first started dating, I did have a little bit of trepidation just because I didn't know if this could be a prank. It could be this turns into something else. It could be they're pitying me. All of these things kind of came into play. And there was a lot of unpacking and a lot of conversations that we have had, conversations that I've had internally, things that I've had to write out to really realize that regardless of this, Andrew is here. And my body has experienced some shifts over the course of our relationship. And that has not changed their desire to want to be with me. So, I think Andrew has told me multiple times, if I were white and blonde and like a swimsuit model, they would still want to be with me because it's me. It's not just this. Mm-hmm. So that has been awesome and has helped me unlearn a lot of the protective ways in which I carried myself and kind of entered into the dating sphere.
That makes sense because society definitely puts that on us, and then the people we interact with put that on us as well, and how we interact. Especially like you said, it definitely resonated, about being good enough to be super close with, mm-hmm. To be like that bestie with, but not to date. That definitely does something to the self-esteem as well. And then eventually you hopefully come out of it.
Yeah, you hopefully come out of it. I jokingly refer to, there's an American Dad episode where Stan, he has lost his hair and he's talking to his son, Steve, and he talks about how he's been wearing a toupee for years. Steve is having to wear a scoliosis brace or whatever, and he's feeling very insecure. And he says, I'm going to butcher this slightly. But he talks about having to wear the hair. He's like, it's kind of like the fat girl that you get really close to in college, but you would never date. And I laughed and was like, oh gosh, that is like a known thing, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately for us. But hopefully less and less that's happening. Andrew, what about for you? Have you always, I know you talked about a few relationships in the past. Mm-hmm. Have you always had a type, or have you dated like a spectrum of people?
Both. I've always had a type, but I've dated the spectrum. But like, I still remember one of my first celebrity crushes was seeing Melissa McCarthy in Gilmore Girls. But it's one of those things that unfortunately a lot of people hear, oh, that's your type, it must be a fetish thing. It's like, no, you can just have a type the same way you can be attracted to a blonde or a brunette. And Jamie is very much and has always been my type. And for me, I didn't really think too much about aspects around it because, in full disclosure, I grew up with a great deal of body issues of my own. I'm recovering anorexic, and I've spent a lot of years figuring out a great many things about gender and body and how they intersect with myself and all that. And so, a lot of that work has been done together. The most impactful work we've done together over the last several years. But yeah, there was never a comfort with my own body. So even though our paths have been pretty different for a number of ways, I never was without understanding or wanting to understand that. But yeah, without question, I have always just had a preference or a type, however you want to phrase it.
Nice. Well, I'm glad that you two found each other, and that you are sharing this wonderful love story with yourselves and also with us. Before we go, I want to ask just a couple of fun questions. Okay. One, if you each had to say what you thought the other person would say their pet peeve is of you, what do you think it is? So Andrew, what do you think Jamie's pet peeve of you is? And Jamie, what do you think Andrew's pet peeve of you is?
Without question, I've gotten better, but I do have workaholism problems, and can sometimes struggle to say prioritize when it comes to navigating a bunch of say freelance projects while also having something a personal like writing project thing really eating at me, thus getting me to put in very late hours and to stress myself out and not take as good care of myself as I could. And I'm a Taurus and I don't put much faith in star signs, but I am stubborn as hell when it comes to that. I think I'll probably be the most annoying thing when it comes to navigating me.
Jamie, do you agree?
Yeah.
Just a little hesitation. Just a little hesitation would have been nice.
I will say, my dear, they have gotten a great deal better at managing their own schedules and having confidence in themselves to complete the projects that they have. And
that's therapy.
Therapy. But I think that for me, it's the reason it's a pet peeve is because I don't like to see them struggle and suffer. And when you know that there is something that could be done to alleviate the stress and suffering, but they've done a really good job, and I've learned that about them and have appreciated all of the growth that they've had. So
that's awesome.
Trying to think, pet peeve for me.
Yes.
Oh goodness.
What about you drives Andrew crazy?
Well, I'm awesome, so there can't be. So
I know.
Very modest.
Let me be modest about this thing here. Now, I think it's probably when I don't take good care of myself. I will get very focused on things and I will put myself on the back burner when it comes to voicing my needs or my wants and that sort of thing. So yeah, I am stubborn sometimes too, but
just a little bit.
I think I've gotten better at it.
As long as the growth is happening.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's one of those things that we hesitate to say because of so many reasons, but there is a small element of the pandemic which has been good to us, and that it's forced us to do a lot of growth and talking about these things because we were separated for 18 months. So
yeah. Well, that's the one silver lining. Andrew, did Jamie nail yours?
Oh yeah.
Perfect. All right, I'll go in reverse order this time. Jamie, what are your top 3 favorite things about Andrew?
Gosh, I only have 3. Dang it. Their creativity. That is something that attracted me to them from the jump. Finding someone who enjoys art and creativity as much as I do has been one of the favorite things. Another would be their sense of humor. That is something that we have in kind. I am a goofball by my own admission, and if you talk to anybody who's met me, they would say the same thing. So to have someone who can keep up with my goofiness and also make me laugh is wonderful. And I think their drive and passion, not just when it comes to their own writing or art or whatnot, but just sticking up for people, sticking up for those who are forgotten, you know, trying to be there for everyone. That is something that I greatly appreciate.
Love that. That's a great list. Andrew, what about you?
Definitely with you on the humor. That is something where it's not an exaggeration to say she makes me laugh almost every single day, and usually about the most absurd, weird, nonsensical things, which describes a lot of our time together, and I love it. Sense of adventure is a big one because we've often sort of jokingly call each other our road trip buddies. There's just something about the desire to say, screw it, let's go do this today and get lost. And I really adore that, especially as someone who, for a lot of years, I've struggled with needing to plan everything, all my days out. And I've been working on that, but it's very much countered by her willingness to say, yeah, we're getting up and we're going doing this. And I love that. And I think the third thing, I was trying to kind of weigh between these two. Creativity is pretty much neck and neck with, if I can cheat and do a fourth, kindness. You have, like Jamie has, uh I've had a very strong like sense of justice, and sometimes I've been a little too hard and fast, and not in the past, not as interested in, more interested in saying you did this wrong, not can you grow, are you growing as a person. She has helped me kind of slow down and weigh things with a lot more grace and patience. And that's something that has made an indelible change in who I am and how I move through this world. So I think that has to be near the top.
I love that. That is a great list also. Well, thank you both so much for your time. And then I have one last question for you each, and then I'll let you go, which is, so I always, whenever I'm creating things, I always do it from the viewpoint of like what I felt like I needed when I was younger. And I definitely feel like this series is something that I could have used when I was younger in my teen years. So if you had to go back and say something to the teenage version of you, what would you tell them or tell her?
That is a very, very good question. I think for me, it would be, you are okay as you are. All of those things that you have questioned about yourself, all of those things that you nitpick about yourself, you are okay, more than okay. You are wonderful as you are. And to allow yourself to just be yourself. And I know that's, screamingly cliche, but I have found when looking back, when I have been 100% rooted in myself, that gave me the strength to kind of keep going. So those are the things I think I would say to my younger self.
I love it.
I think for me, it might sound a little strange, but it would be, it's okay to be honest. Because there is a lot I wasn't honest about, mostly with regard to like how I'm feeling, how I'm hurting, what I'm going through or thinking, the mental health stuff and eating disorder started creeping in when I was in my mid-teens and hit an apex around grade 11, 12, around there. And it wouldn't have, I don't think, had I felt like I could speak more to certain things, to a lot of things. Just kind of be more open with, even with family and friends, but just like, hey, that hurt, or hey, this made me feel like crap, things like that. I'm not trying to be like, but so vague. But yeah, there's just a lot of that would be what I would try to tell my younger self. That, and because of the country I'm in, do French immersion because it will help you get government jobs.
That's good to know too. Some career tips.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, that would have been.
thank you both so much, Andrew and Jamie, for joining me and for having this conversation and being part of this series. I can't thank you enough for your time, and thank you everybody who's watching at home.
Thanks, everyone.
You.